So last week was a little intense with Van Nuys Airport, so we're going the complete opposite extreme to something much more peaceful as we head to the desert and visit an airport that I flew to for my second solo cross country as a student private pilot, and what feels like was forever years ago.
Twentynine Palms traffic, Aero 1939 Hotel, entering unextended left downwind for 26, full stop. Twentynine Palms.
I remember as a student pilot having to choose a location for my second cross-country solo. And since I had already flown west to Camarillo for my first cross-country, I figured why not head east into the desert. It's no secret now that I love visiting new airports, but even as a student, if I had the chance to go somewhere new, I was going to take it. But unfortunately, I was on a schedule. I only had time to land, taxi back, and return to Chino where I was training out of. So today was a special day to return to this airport, park, and do some discovering. This airport has some fascinating history, makes it a great stop for long cross country if only to use the bathroom. And even though it's pretty desolate, we found it to be extremely peaceful. All as we visit Twentynine Palms Airport in Twentynine Palms, California.
Flight traffic, Arizona 402, Woover inbound on the RNAV 26. Is that Skyhawk still on runway 35? All right, then we'll be start breaking off and circling for runway 35, Arizona 402.
So I want to point out something very interesting. That radio call was for Blythe Airport, which is 70 miles southeast of Twentynine Palms. I got questioned once why I say the 0 in, for example, this runway here at this airport, 08. And it's because of this exactly when two different airports had the same frequency. You never know if the other airport has a similar sounding runway, for example, 18. And this was even trickier because both airports here have the exact same runways. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with omitting the 0, it's just my personal preference. It was September 27, 2022. I was excited and nervous. I got my flight following on the ground at Chino, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm going to fly so high today, 5,500 feet. Yeah, I know, but as a student, I thought I was flying into the stratosphere at this point. The tough part was that there really wasn't much information on the airport.
Twentynine Palms traffic, Aero 39 Hotel, left downwind of beam 26 for full stop.
I would research on YouTube and of course the charts supplement, and one of the toughest pieces of information to find was how to get the weather. I'll give you the answer to that soon. On the approach that day, I also remember thinking, am I low enough? How is my speed? Where is left traffic? How far out do I make a call? Spoiler, I came in high and fast, and I had to slip it down and still use more than half the runway. But hey, a win is a win. Today though was much better.
Twentynine Palms traffic, Aero 39 Hotel, turning left base 26, Twentynine Palms.
So why is this airport even here? Well, it was activated on January 1st, 1942. Yeah, there goes that year again, 1942. During that time, Germany was experimenting with gliders and even had a really successful mission with them since they were quiet and could land on small airfields.
Twentynine Palms traffic, Aero 39 Hotel, turning final 26, Twentynine Palms.
Well, then the US learned about that successful mission and decided it was time to have our own. So the airport was one of many that was used for glider training, and it was called Twentynine Palms Air Academy. General Henry H. Arnold ordered the training of 150 glider pilots. But by the end of the war, 6,000 glider pilots had been trained, and 1,654 were trained right here at this airport. The first mission unfortunately didn't go so well. High winds and inexperienced tow pilots completely botched the operation. But Sicily was eventually captured by the Allies. So what happened to this glider program after the war? Well, helicopters happened. They had better performance while being more economical. Twentynine Palms Airport is untowered and has two runways, 0826 at about 5,500 feet and 1735 at almost 3,800 feet with an airport elevation of 1,888 feet. Now the runway condition is pretty good, but there are a number of patches due to the cracks that occur from the hot temperatures, with summers having consistent temperatures above 100 degrees. And there are two instrument approaches which include a VOR alpha and an RNAV for both runways 26, but be aware that the RNAV is not a straight in. It has a 7-degree offset. There is a Tetrahedron wind indicator here. All you have to do is look the way it's pointing and that's where the wind is coming from.
Twentynine Palms traffic, Aero 39 Hotel, clear of 26, 29 Palms.
We've already discussed a little bit about the weather and it being hot here, but this is the desert, and the other thing you must be aware of is the winds. Whenever I look at an airport diagram and see crossing runways, I always think that means that winds in all directions can be expected. Now, the 2 times I've been here, winds were down the runway, but it's nice to have that extra one just in case those winds pick up going north-south direction. I mentioned I'd let you know how to get that weather here. Well, there are 2 methods. The first, like I just mentioned, is that tetrahedron. The second is the AWOS, which is not on the charts here, but you can get the weather by clicking the CTAF 3 times. And you can even click it 4 times for radio check. Alright, so let's talk airspaces. So this might not be SoCal TRACON proper, but that doesn't mean you don't have to watch out for some very particular restricted military airspaces to the north that goes from the ground to unlimited. If you're talking to SoCal or LA Center, most likely, they will warn you when you're getting too close. And I would heed their warnings because it is the largest marine base in the US by land area. And that land is used for live fire exercises. Again, just stay away from that airspace. Oh, and speaking of military, the Marines have used this airport to train on how to take over an airfield. And if you want to see what that looks like, we'll put a link to a video in the description below. As far as transient parking, there's not too many spots here. As you can see, a lot of them are already taken up by other planes. They do have another area further east, but I don't recommend it there since that area has some deep cracks in the asphalt. Luckily for us, we were able to find 2 open spots here with tie-down chains. So we've read in multiple places that pilots fly into this airport and go to Joshua Tree National Park. Now what we found is the closest entrance is 10 miles away. So it begs the question, for you pilots who have actually done this, how did you get from the airport into the park? All right, it's time for us to do some discovering. So the first thing you notice as soon as you land is that it is completely quiet. All you hear is the wind, really. So the code's really easy to get in here. As you guys can see, it's just the emergency frequency, which I'm sure you guys know. So we didn't know what to expect, but we were pleasantly surprised. As you guys can see, there's microwaves, there's chairs, but the best thing is that on hot days, they do have air conditioning in here. Even that ceiling fan. As we said earlier, there is food in the fridge, but according to one person on 4Flight's comments section, they said make sure to read the expiration date. One of the things that really surprised us was finding quarts of oil. They have W100 Plus and W15, W50. All they ask is that you pay the price that's posted right above the oil. Again, honor system. But we thought it was such a nice touch for them to look out for pilots. Again, for a pilot, the only thing more important than nav gas is probably the bathroom. And you can even pay your tie-down fees in here. We were really surprised with this pilot's lounge. The fact that it had oil, it had bathrooms, it was air conditioning, it was perfect. So this is a great option for any pilot traveling through this desert area. Now, I had read about the 3 clicks for the weather on 4Flight's comment section, but there is a sign about it here. Unfortunately, I did check the chart supplement for this airport and it does not have that information on there. As far as fuel, it can be hit or miss. At least a year ago, people were saying that the fuel pumps were down. They work perfectly today. We didn't have any issues, and that problem could have been resolved, as I haven't seen that being a problem in the latest comments on 4Flight. But just in case, come in here knowing that there's a possibility that the fuel pumps might be down, but that's pretty much at any airport. And you might say, well, there should be a NOTAM stating that the fuel pumps are down. And the only response I have to that is, yes, there should. I talked about how I don't recommend the east side parking. Well, this is why. It's because the cracks are pretty sizable, so I just wouldn't go there, but it's up to you. So if you ever wanted to know what Irene and I do when we go to these airports, whether they're desolate or not desolate, this is what we do. We walk around the airport and just explore. Discover all the things that it has to offer. And like this plane right here, we didn't know what it really was. I'd never seen a plane like this with the, I guess, fins in the front. And this plane right here, yeah, now it's a complete derelict, but at one time it probably flew some amazing journeys. And I just wonder, like, what was it like back then for this plane? Now it just sits here. Luckily for us, this is an empty airport, so it's easy to walk around. Not so much with busier airports. People are wondering, what are we doing? Just walking around. We usually mitigate that by just introducing ourselves. But that's it for this airport, and now it's time to head on home. So one more thing to be aware of. If you happen to be on flight following and heading west from this airport, just know that if you are below 6,000 to 8,000 feet and are near Yucca Valley Airport, which is typically where LA Center hands you off, SoCal might not be able to hear you until you get closer to Palm Springs area. That has been our pretty consistent experience, so if you don't hear anything or they don't hear you, don't panic. Always remember, LA Center handed you off, so SoCal will know to expect you, even if it's just a little later. And yeah, as a student, I did panic a little. We also want to thank Brohan Gohan 1136 for requesting this airport a couple of months ago. I'm going to guess the username is a Dragon Ball reference, but either way, thanks for the request. So last week we left you with an anxiety-inducing departure, so hopefully this one evens things out a bit. we want to thank a couple of you guys. So our dream is to do the channel full time to bring you even more in-depth information and stories about these airports. I mean, with 520 towered airports and nearly 20,000 non-towered, we got our work cut out for us. But every week, it feels like we're one step closer to that reality, and it's because of you. So thank you so much, Tony, Chris, Steve, Eric, and Aviator for this week's Super Thanks. So this week, we're going to release memberships, whether it's fully ready or not. And there's even a slight chance that we've already released memberships by the time we release this video. We'll make adjustments as needed, but know that we try to front load the perks in a way that it doesn't price out anyone, because flying is expensive enough. You'll see exactly what we mean soon, and it'll be both on Patreon and YouTube memberships, making it your choice. Now, we prefer Patreon, but we know that it means signing up for a whole nother platform. And again, we wanted to leave that up to you. We'll have more details very soon.
Twentynine Palms traffic, Aero 1939 Hotel, taking runway 26 at Alpha, straight out departure, Twentynine Palms.
So I'll share something personal with you guys. When I came as a student and I departed this airport with the peaceful background of the desert and just me in the cockpit, I reflected on the unbelievable reality of being there at that moment. We experienced a tough loss that year that we're still dealing with today. But at that time, I needed something to relieve some of that pain, and aviation provided that. It was definitely a bittersweet moment because, on the one hand, never in a million years would I have thought I would actually be flying a plane by myself. And on the other hand, I would still give it all up to reverse that loss. But unfortunately, life doesn't work that way. We're truly grateful for what we have found in aviation and the adventures that we have taken to places we would have never otherwise visited, like Twentynine Palms Airport. And even better, that hopefully it makes you want to take your own adventures. Well, this wraps it up for another one, and we hope this one was much more peaceful. We definitely needed it too after last week. As always, there were some amazing comments. We got some great feedback on some additional info we added, and even some of your own memories with Van Nuys Airport. So we can't wait to hear what you guys have for us this week. We think the funniest part of last week's video was that some of you were just as stressed as we were. I'm pretty sure Irene said, good, at least it wasn't just us. And finally, thank you all so much. Truly, the fact that almost 2,600 of you have decided to subscribe to this channel is nuts. But we love that you're here, and we'll keep the airports coming. We'll see you next week, and until then, go fly, go discover.